So we're talking about the why is it better to do Torah and mitzvahs in this world than the whole world to come? So the Rebbe explained, there's a lot of different explanations on this, but this is the way the Rebbe explains here. This physical world and the existence of the world comes from a ray of God, just a ray of godliness. And it's all concealed, and in this world we don't see anything. But in the upper worlds, there is a ray of godliness which comes from Torah and the commandments. And this ray of godliness, which comes from the Torah of the commandments, even though it's also not essence of God, but it is more revealed. It's more revealed godliness. It's a tremendous revelation of God that cannot be revealed in this world. An example of this is when God gave the Torah at Mount Sinai, as everybody's souls jumped out of their bodies. It was just too much of a revelation. Or also, this was it was permanently in the world, in the Holy of Holies. In the Holy of Holies, if anybody went in there at any time of the year, they would die. And even if the high priest would go in there, but he would go in with one bad thought, he would also die. So we see that the revelation of godliness, which is by means of Torah and the commandments, is just simply too high to be accepted by any creation. It says even the angels. It says even the angels. Loya. It says loya. There shouldn't be anybody in the Adam with the high priest. This is even those angels which are called Adam, Tzurat, the face of man on the chariot. Now, even the angels couldn't take that revelation that was in the temple, in the Holy of Holies. They couldn't take it. And so the Rebbe says, if so, how can we take it? How can we get in when a person goes to heaven? Now, it seems from what the Rebbe is saying over here that there are several different levels of heaven. For instance, it says that God never remains a debtor. So anybody that does something good, even a non-Jewish person, even a non-Jewish person that does things just to be a good person, just to be genuinely in good, right? He does it for his own religion or anything. Now, who decides what good is, what's bad? Is the Torah decides what's good and bad. But let's say accidentally, unintentionally, or according to his religion says it's a good thing to be a nice person. So he's a nice person. He does good things. That person is going to get a reward. Somehow or other, everybody gets rewarded for everything they do. Anytime a good person does something good, as he gets rewarded. Anytime even if he does it accidentally, even if he does it unintentionally, you do a good thing, you get some sort of reward. You get reward in this world, you get reward in a spiritual world after death, whatever. But nevertheless, there is some sort of reward. But here we're talking about a whole different business. We're talking about directly a person that does the Torah and he does the commandments, and because he's commanded to do, or a non-Jew, for instance, that does the 7 Noahide commandments, and he does it because he's commanded to do it from God. So therefore, he's now doing. It's a different business now. Now it's a whole different thing. Here we're talking, let's say, especially about the Jews, but a person that does things because it says in the Torah, and the Torah is the word of God, not because he does it in his book. There's all these other books. Every religion has a book, and they have good and bad and things you're supposed to do. If by accident they happen to do in their religion things that it says in Judaism, because Judaism is the only time that God spoke to the whole world was in Judaism. All the other religions are based on one person or a couple people. They said they saw something, they heard something. But the Torah is, at least the claim, nobody even religion makes the claim. 3 million people saw and heard God directly, face to face, and they saw Moses come down, a person come down from the mountain with exactly what God said. So that what God said, and that is eternal. That's not just what God said 3,000 years ago and you can change it. That's eternal. What God said is eternal. Why is it eternal? Because that's, like I said so many times, it's like looking in an anatomy book and saying this is where the rib cage is, and this is where the femur is, and this is where the radius and the ulna and the scapula and this. You look at the book. This book was written in 1920. Things have changed since then. What do you mean they've changed? Human beings are still the same human beings. The limbs and is the same. The same thing. The Torah is the limbs and the bones of God. It's the wisdom and the will of God, and that's eternal. So when a person does these commandments, so there's a tremendous reward that's evoked by this. It opens up a door. Now the question is how, okay, good, it opens up a door, but it's opening up a door like the giving of the Torah. How can you receive such a thing? And so it's and what you say, well, maybe it's the soul. The soul receives it. He says, yeah, but the soul is also a creation. If the angels can't receive it, the angels, because they're creations, so the soul is also a creation. So says the Rebbe that with every commandment that is done is also, now we're talking about we're talking about this is the Jewish reward for doing Jewish things. The Jews have a special reward. Maybe they get a special punishment also. The punishment, for sure, we've seen enough punishments in this world. The Jews, for sure, the reward that they get is infinite godliness, pure godliness, like in Mount Sinai. How can anybody accept such a thing? So it says, because when you do a commandment, it also draws down a garment. And this is something like the cloud that Moses went into a cloud in order to go up on Mount Sinai. And it says also on Yom Kippur that the high priest went in with a cloud. He said it didn't go in with the cloud. He burnt the incense when he was in the Holy Temple, but it was still with a cloud. So this cloud is a garment, and this is higher than the reward. This enables him to receive the reward. It's like a bulletproof vest is somehow or other more powerful than the bullets, or a fireproof garment is more powerful than the fire. Somehow or other, this garment, which is also drawn down with the commandment, as well as the reward, also the garment and the ability to receive this reward. So that's what he says. It says God's will came down into the physical world, like physical tefillin and wool tzitzis and physical charity. So you're just doing these physical things. But the fact is that when you do it according to the Torah, it draws down a tremendous light of God. And this tremendous light of God is the power that pushed God's will into these physical things in the first place. Therefore, when you work in Torah and the commandments, not only is there a reward, in other words, you're doing the will of God because you're doing the will of God. So therefore, it makes God happy. God reacts to what you do, and this reaction you feel in the world to come. But that reaction is God. It's the essence of God. How can you accept that? So it says, because when you do the commandments, it also draws down a garment. Shenitlabesh bohem, that is enclosed in them, began Eden Elyon, in the upper heaven. So there's different levels of heaven also. Different levels of heaven as well. So there maybe infinite numbers of heaven. So levels of heaven. So non-Jews that do good things, or let's say non-Jews, or even a Jew that does good things accidentally, unintentionally. So he also gets a reward. There's also a reward. But the reward that you get for that is incomparable to the reward you get for doing according to God's will. And that's incomparable to what the doing God's will with love and fear. That's what's called upper heaven. That by means of, but how can you receive this? Because you have to have garments. And by means of these garments, the good deeds that you do, in our case, we're talking about the Torah and the commandments, as Tochal Anashama, the soul is able, which is just a creation, Lahasig, to understand, to grasp, to perceive, Ziv HaShechina, the ray of the essence of the Shechina, of God's presence, Atzmut Elokus, the essence of God. That's what it means, that's what it means, it's better one moment, but Tshuva Ma'asim Tovim, and doing, returning to God and doing good deeds, Shehem, that their source comes from what? From God's upper will, the source of God's upper will. That's better than all of the life in the world to come. Why? Because the world, the world to come, that's just a ray of God's Shekhinah. That's the reward that you get. But by doing the commandments, it actually draws down a garment. They are garments that by them you can get the ray of the Shekhinah. But and that's enough for one who understands. Okay, there's a very, one of the 13 principles of Jewish faith is that there's going to be the raising of the dead. The dead are going to raise up. Now, before the dead raise up, so they're in heaven. They're in heaven. They go to the highest levels of heaven, the lowest levels of heaven, but they're in heaven. Heaven is pretty good. I mean, heaven is, like it says, revelations of godliness, pure godliness, things that people go berserk in this world for money, for power, for pleasure, for lusts, for this. People go berserk. As in heaven, you go up to heaven, you get the whole business for free. You get the essence of pleasure. Essential pleasure higher than any drug can possibly give you, higher than anything in this world, not even everything in this world could possibly give you. So why not just leave the souls in heaven? Why not leave the whole souls up there in heaven? Let them be in heaven and bask in the glory of the Lord forever, forever and ever and ever. That's the way they were before they were born. Huh? There was no time up there, just pleasure. Huh? Pleasure, pure pleasure. So the answer is that there's something much, much higher than that. Because when going to heaven and getting these high revelations, that you get pleasure. But in this world, you can give God pleasure. And this pleasure that you give God from this world, that's where all these garments come from. That is where the garments come from that enable you to receive these rays of godliness in the world. And that is also where these garments are eternal. Eventually, these garments become your body, or not even they become, they are your body. How did you do the commandments? Because you have a body. So by means of your physical body doing the commandments, you have no idea what you're doing at that second. You think you're putting on tefillin or you're giving charity. It took a couple seconds, a couple of minutes. But it's not so. That thing that you did is eternal. We don't know what eternal means in this world. The best we can get is spiritual. He says that's not it. The fact is, when a Jew does a commandment in this physical world, it makes his body, physical body, something eternal. And that's revealed in the raising of the dead, the raising of the dead. And that'll make the whole world holy, because if it wasn't for a world with all the people in it, you wouldn't be able to do the commandments. So the whole thing becomes sanctified. It becomes not just sanctified, it becomes godlified, whatever that means, new word. So in other words, going to heaven is wonderful for us. But the revelation that's going to be in the raising of the dead is something that's incomparably more real than heaven. That's going to be the body, the physical body in this physical world. And that's all done by means of the commandments. That's why God chose the Jewish people in this physical world. That, by the way, that's what's happening now in the news, that the Arabs, the Hamas, the whole world is saying Israel belongs to the Arabs, it belongs to them, it doesn't belong to the Jews. Right? It belongs to the Jews. Free Palestine from the Jews. The Jews, they're wrecking the whole thing up. They're squatters. Get the squatters out, right? They're there. They haven't paid. They're renting it out. Who are they renting it from? The Palestinians. The Palestinians, they're the real true owners. They're the real true owners. And the Jews are they came, they promised they'd pay, and they didn't pay. And not only that, we're taking them over, and we're this. Says, well, I mean, okay, let's say they get the Arabs get Israel. What are they going to do with it? What are they going to do? What are they doing now? What have they done up to now? what have they accomplished up to now? What do they want to do that we're preventing them from doing? Right? They want to come and live in the place. They haven't got a place to live. They got a place to live. They have a place to live. They have nice houses. They have everything they want. Right? And the news, it says they don't, but the fact is they do. They can live in tunnels. These guys, they live in tunnels for years. Then what do they care about houses? Live in tunnels. What are they going to do with the Holy Land? What's the point of the Holy Land? So what do the Arabs say? No, you tell me what the Holy Land is for. So I'll tell you what the Holy Land is for. The Holy Land is to show that the whole world is holy. The Holy Land is to show that the physical world is higher than heaven. The Holy Land is to show that every detail and every moment and every human being, every movement and every thought and every speech, every word that every human being makes and every animal makes is all connected directly to God, and God cares about it all. How precious this physical world is. That's why it's called the Holy Land. The Holy Land. They fight big battles over it, right? If the Arabs get a hold of Israel, what's it going to be? It's going to be like every other place. It's going to be the Christians get a hold of what's going to be. It's going to be one huge big idol, right? Like Rome or something like that, with all sorts of statues and peoples and trinities and dualities and crealities, whatever. What about all the commandments? What about all the promises that God made to the Jewish people? What about the Holy Temple? What about showing that the whole world is holy? Right? All of these other religions, what do they say? You're going to go to heaven, we'll get the land, and then everybody's going to heaven. We're not talking about going to heaven. Here we just explained in very great detail that going to heaven is very nice, very good, but that is not the goal of man to go to heaven. The goal of man is to make this world a holy place. And that's the purpose of the land of Israel, to show that this world is a holy place. And if any other group, any other religion, whatever, they control it, whatever, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because their goal is not this world. They don't care about this world. The main thing is to go to heaven. Why do they want Israel? Because we've got it. And they want to show that as long as there's one Jew left in the world, so these other religions, they can't, it wrecks up their whole show, their whole, what do I say, their whole game, that they're the chosen people and that God chose us and he gave us his book. And as long as there's one Jew in the world, especially if that Jew lives in the land of Israel, it wrecks up their whole entire story, lie. That's why it says that Mashiach is going to come and show all the religions that they're just big lies. They've been based on lies. And therefore, all the people that believe in them are innocent. They're innocent. And even the preachers that preach it are innocent. They received from lies from people who received lies from lies, right? So from Islam, it's 1,600 years of lies, and Christianity is 2,000 years of lies, but it's just lies. And with those lies, they want to take over the land, the holy land of Israel, to show us that this world is not a good place. But that's the whole opposite of what the land of Israel is. The essence of the land of Israel is that this physical world is higher infinitely than all of the world, the life of the world to come. That's why it says it's better one moment of tshuva and good deeds in this world than all of the world to come. And now, we have to understand love and fear. Okay, doing the commandments is very important. Doing the commandments is wonderful. Doing the commandments is godly. It's pure God. It shows that this world is great. But the fact of the matter is just doing the commandments cold because this world is great. All these wonderful things, these ideas that I say, they remain in your mind, but you remain separate from them. You have to sort of turn yourself off. You turn off your personality, you become like a zombie, and you do the commandments and forget about what you like and what you don't like and what you that. That's not the point. When we say to make the world holy, it makes everything in the world holy, including our personalities and our emotions. And instead of being emotional and loving and being afraid of getting money or losing money or getting popularity or losing popularity or getting peer pressure of the peer agreement and the not getting peer agreement, or my ratings go up or my ratings go down, my bank account has 5 zeros in it or 3 zeros or 6 zeros, right? Instead of that is what gives us love and fear, right? And you'll see what people know, right? I'm sure you've had times in your life when all of a sudden you thought money was missing, or maybe your money did get missing. Oh, how bad you feel, at least for a couple minutes. And some people that wrecks their whole life. The famous stock market crash, people jumped out of buildings, they lost their money. That's what people love and what people fear, namely for themselves. They care about themselves, and justly so, because that's all we feel. Who says there's God? And if there is God, who says there's anything there to love? What are we supposed to love? But says the Rebbe, that's the whole point of this business of Mashiach and this and the commandments, is to come to love God. That's the motto of Judaism. Listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one, and you should love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. Loving God is essential. And fearing God is also essential. What does it mean, fearing God? Fearing only God. You're not afraid of anything else except for God. Not afraid of the enemy. You're not afraid of this. You're not going to jump off of buildings. Not doing stupid things. But you should be afraid of, being afraid of being a fool or fooling yourself. But what does it mean to have love and fear of God? Well, let's say, why do people like money? Why do they? Because money, it does things, right? It does things for you. If you look at the money and you say, wow, I got $1 million. Somebody says, my friend, that's not $1 million. That's 1 million francs. Says, okay, 1 million francs. There's no such thing as francs anymore. It's not worth anything. I don't know. Is it worth? I don't know. I don't think so. I think if you go to the bank with francs, you don't get anything. Or marks or something like that. That's not worth anything, right? You know, if it's
What's
not
a franc?
Huh?
What's a franc?
French money.
Oh.
French money. Before they made the euros, they used to be francs in France. And in Germany, they used to be marks. And the only ones that didn't join was England. They still have pounds. except for that. And what is it? Then Italy had liras or something. I don't know what they had. Anyway, you have all this money that's not. What's the point of money? What is the point of having money? You have money, you feel more secure, you feel more power, you feel you've accomplished something, you feel you've done something, you're somebody. Some people don't even spend the money, they just want money, right? They just want to have more money just to feel the money, and they don't want to lose their money or spend their money. That was a famous thing with what's his name, with Howard Hughes. He didn't spend any money, didn't give any charity, didn't give anything. But he had a lot of money, and he got more and more money, and he went berserk because he had money. But money, that's what he wanted. That's what he loved, money, and he was afraid of losing money. And everybody is like that to a certain degree. How can you have love and fear for God? So the answer is you love something that's valuable and it's yours. If something is valuable and it's somehow or other it's yours, it gives you a pleasure. People love the rock and roll stars, right? Because it's something it gives you pleasure. And I paid money. I hear the music. It's going into my mind. You can understand, you can feel it, right? You hear Japanese music by the greatest Japanese player. It doesn't do anything to you, right? Nothing. Because it's not your thing. But something that you feel that's relevant to you. Oy. So really, God is relevant to everybody. He's creating everybody. He's enlivening everybody. You're being created by God. So you should have love and fear for God. Says the Rebbe even more. Without this love and fear for God, you're not living in a real world. Your personality is separate from reality. It's like a person that's hypnotized to believe that he's whatever it is, a dog. So he loves fire hydrants and he loves bones and he loves things like that. But he's living in a hypnotic world. The same thing is that if we love things that are relevant to us, we're hypnotized. We're not really animals. Human beings are not really animals. Of course, we also are animals, but not the main thing. Human beings are creations of God. And Jews are the sons of God. That's what we should feel, right? Like a dog likes the fire hydrant or he likes a bone or whatever he likes, that's how much we should like God. Not for the same reason the dog likes the fire hydrant, but it's a thing we should be attracted to God, because he's creating us. Love and fear. Says the Rebbe even more, if a Jew does not have this love and fear, so when he does the commandments, so he's doing them cold. He's doing them in a way not genuinely. It's like a salesman that doesn't believe in his product. So he goes to the door, knocks on the door. Would you like to buy Star vacuum cleaners? They are the best in the world. Slams the door in his face. He says, excuse me, sir, I have a really good vacuum cleaner here. I really believe in it. I tried it. It said, if you need a vacuum cleaner, then this is the one for you. If you don't need, then God bless you. Have a good day. It says, well, the fact is I do need a vacuum cleaner. Right? This is just the best in the world. Here, I'll show you. Let me give you an example. Right here, I have a package of dirt. I'll put it here on your porch, and I'll show you because I really believe it. If you really believe in it, and you really believe that it's good, so then that's called genuine. And doing the commandments in a genuine way means that you really believe that God is good. You're doing God's commandments. You're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing it to go to heaven. You're doing it to fix up the world. And that's why you should have love and fear. That's the idea of love and fear. Shu rak ziv. Sorry. Love and fear. She'em rak gadvim, that they are just wings to elevate the commandments, the Torah, and the good deeds. So it's just you have to have tshuva and maisim tovim. Tshuva means to return to God, to start feeling God, valuing God instead of just valuing yourself. That's called tshuva. And maisim tovim are good deeds. The main thing is to do the good deeds, but there has to be tshuva first. And tshuva means that instead of loving yourself, you love the Creator. Instead of feeling how real I am, you feel that how real, not instead of, you feel the reality of God, which is much greater. It's like if you're walking down the street and you find $10, you're happy. But if all of a sudden you find a packet of $1 million, so you don't care about the $10 anymore. If it's genuine, that is to be genuine, $1 million. God is like the $1 million. That's just an example. God is infinitely more valuable than that. $1 million, and myself is like $10. So I'm happy. I'm a person. But really, you should be infinitely more happy and positive about God. That lifts up. Your love and fear lift up. It's called, the right arm is called love, and the left arm is called fear. God, it says, Isaiah and those others, they saw God sitting on the throne, and his right arm was like this, and his left arm was like this. And the Torah says the right arm of God is uplifted, and God's left arm. Okay, let's understand, what is this love? Behold, the Kriya Shema, when we say Kriya Shema, it says that we have to make God rule. We have to realize that God is ruling, and that makes God rule. We have to declare that God is the king. Lamaila ulamato ladalid ruchot, above and below and for the four directions of the world. But that's what it means. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Echad. Echad, the Chet is the number 8. That's the 7 heavens and the earth. That's above and below. And the Dalid of Echad are the 4 directions of the world. In other words, that God rules over everything. What does it mean, God rules over everything? And that's what it means. That's what it means, that God fills, his glory fills the world. But Targum, it says, Ziv Yikare, a ray of godliness. That's what we just finished explaining. That this is just a ray, Vispashtus, and a spreading out of godliness alone. A midlabesh batoch kula, only that's in all the worlds. Because see, like it says that the Shemayim but the Or, it's animale. It says the heavens and the earth I fill. Atzmus elokus, the essence of God. She'enu nitfas toch mirat gvul. It's not limited. Okay. Let's take a simple example. A dog. You ever see a dog before? Ever watch a dog? Well, a dog is pretty miraculous. The fact of the matter is, it's a dog. You don't like dogs. What about a chicken? A chicken, a bird, an ant, a protozoa, anything. All these things are miraculous. What's miraculous about them? They're alive. You see that they're alive. Where does their life come from? Amazing. Watch a cat sometime, a crow. You ever watch a crow? You can watch a crow. The most amazing thing, the movements are so sophisticated. A crow, how he moves its head and how he moves its wings, right? It's just, it's like, how do you say, synchronism. That's the word. What is it called? Anyway, everything is together with everything else. Oh, it's just amazing. If you watch it, it's really quite amazing, quite astounding. Quite astounding. Maybe you could even say beautiful. When you think to yourself, where did this come from? Where did the crow get the nature to do this? So you could say, listen, that's just the nature. You know, the world is 25 trillion years old, and at one time there was only protozoas. And once, one protozoa says, "I'm bored to be a protozoa. I'm going to be a crow," and it became a crow. And from then the crows, and there was some of them that said, "I don't want to be a crow. I want to be a chicken. Or I want to be a crow without any wings, without being so sophisticated, without this." And of course, they died in the survival of the fittest, and they became a crow. You can say that if you want to say it, 100%. But it makes a very boring world. And not only that, the fact is, it's not the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that everything is being created, is enlivened by God. You look at this, you say, "Ooh, this is really incredible. Where is the life of this crow?" You ever see a dead crow? You ever see a dead dog? Nothing special. Nothing really special to see a dead crow or a dead dog. Much more ugly than like a rock or a tree or something like that. You just want to keep away from it. But if it's alive, ooh, that's something. What's the difference between being alive and dead? The soul. Where does the soul come from? Well, either you can say that the soul, just like the batteries, comes along with the kit, which, like I say, 100%, you want to say it. There's big professors that say it, and etc. Or you can say it comes from God. That God is doing it. So if you say it comes from God, that's pretty amazing. That's really amazing. You know how many crows there are in the world? You know how much life there isn't going on in the world? And it says all the stars, the movement of the stars, that's their soul. So if so, that's godliness. Wow, that's really amazing. But then that's called how God fills the world. But then there's also another aspect of God, which is called himself, the essence of God. That's not just a ray of God, the life of God. What is this? That is the essence of God. So to speak, that's the existence of everything, that everything exists. Not that it exists as a crow or exists as a tree or as a tree. The fact of existence, the things exist. That comes from the essence of God. This is totally incomprehensible, totally incomprehensible. You can't, there's absolutely no reason, even in logic or not logic, to say that God is creating everything now. No reason. We can say that if there is God, so he created everything a billion years ago and he just let it go. Right? The same thing is if a life, where you see life inside of everything. There's a bit of a question because we see that life is, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty miraculous. So either we can say it always was there, or we can say that God is creating it, which that's really amazing, right? We can say life, but life itself asks a question. Huh? Asks a question: what is going on over there? Where does consciousness come from? What is it? That's already a question. But existence doesn't ask any question. Existence, how does everything exist? Exists, I don't know, just exists, right? It doesn't press me to explain how it exists, where life comes from. With the people, they die in an automobile accident from the impact. So their whole body is complete, and you can't put the soul back in. And another guy, he's all broken in his head with all of his limbs and everything, it's all cracked open. But nevertheless, you can do artificial respiration, and he comes back to life. Comes back to life, you do operations on him, and he's a living person, and the other guy's completely whole, nothing whatsoever. It's just the wind was knocked out of him, and he never caught his breath, and that's it. So life asks a question, but existence doesn't ask a question. Doesn't ask. Okay, Inyan is like this. So the existence comes from the God's essence, and life that comes from a ray of God. So which one? It says on one hand, it says that God fills the world, and God fills the world. And it says that God is above the world. It says God fills the world with a ray. And the other, it says no, that God himself fills the world. What's going on? Both of them are true. Commercial bittul ziv Hashem is just like the negation of the ray of the sun in the sun itself. Madua, why? Shebe'emes atzmos alakus, the essence of God. Malay, I'm sorry, kiyadua. Kiyadua, like it's known. That in fact the essence of God fills the world. Right? When the ray of sunlight, right, a ray of sunlight comes into the world, right? You see a beam of the sunlight. When that beam is inside the sun, before it comes out, is it a beam? It's not a beam, but it sure exists. How does it exist? If it's not a beam, then how does it exist? Well, it's just like the source of the beam is there. It says, well, the fact of the matter is that's how the world is right now. The world right now is like a ray of the sun inside of the sun. Why do we see the world? Okay, that we'll explain that. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter is that the world is just a beam of godliness. It's not pure godliness, it's just a ray of godliness. Oh, so it's a ray of godliness. So what are you saying that's the essence of godliness? But it's like a ray of godliness, how it is inside of the emanator. The ray of the sun, a sunbeam, how it is inside of the sun. Both of them exist together. How is this? Because God hides himself from us. We don't see it. That which we can understand, who batal v'nichlal is really, if you think about it, it's totally negated in God's mahus v'atzmos, in the essence of God. When a person thinks about this, and when he says, he praises God like King David did, and in Shema Yisrael, how in fact, it is so, that all the worlds, batalim, are totally negated in their source, as in the source of their life, only because of a person is just a vessel, a physical vessel, haguf, and the body, which is called the hide of the serpent, the body, that it gets bigger and physical, it conceals and it hides over the fact that really all there is God. And you can't see the physical eyes. Therefore, then the lave, your heart, starts arousing with a desire and a desire to God. When you think about this all the time, then you're not separate from God at all. This is what's called accepting the yoke of God. On the first sentence, when you say Shema Yisrael and you say Ahavta, I will love God, Sheyiya, you should love that. That's a commandment. Ve'ahavta means you should love God, and also means you will love God. If you think properly about what God is, how close God is, and how God is creating us, and how we're really nothing whatsoever. How do we exist? Because God loves us. And God is creating us. We are miracles, infinitely more important than we can possibly imagine. God is creating us. God is not, how do usually people, atheists or whatever, how do they say that religion is the enemy of man? Why is it the enemy of man? Because this God idea is, according to their understanding, God is in competition with us. Who's going to win, us or God? But if we're going to act the way we want to, then God loses. If we do what we surrender to God, right? If we surrender, then we lose. If we do what we want, then God is the loser. On the other hand, if we do what God wants, then we're the loser. Says the Rebbe, no, 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 no. That's a good reason not to love God and not to care about God. But the fact is it's not so. The fact is that everything we are and everything, and just the way we are, is being created by God. Everything is being created by God all the time. The world is an incredibly meaningful miracle. Everything is important. Don't think what it means that if I realize God, then I become a big zero, a big zero. Exactly the opposite. Without God, the fact is that you're a big zero. That's the fact. And if you realize that God is creating me all the time, then you become attached to the big one. And how do you know that you're a big zero? Just look at all these. I learned in university, all these existential philosophers, especially the Greek, the French ones. What do they end up saying? Life is meaningless. There's no meaning to life. There's no point to life. You have to just deal with the meaninglessness and the emptiness and the nihilism of the world. That's it. So they admit that they're nothing. They themselves are saying that they're nothing. And Judaism says, no, it's not so. Everything is an incredibly valuable, precious creation of God, and every second is an incredible, precious creation of God. And when you realize that, then you'll realize, hey, I'm being created by God, and God is intentionally creating. He doesn't have to create me. He's creating. Not only is he creating me in general, he's giving me eyes and nose and a mouth, right? So then, and not only is creating me and all my details, he's creating everything, all the people in the world. Right? People who are dog lovers, animal lovers, for sure you should be a God lover. He's creating all the animals. But first of all, you have to think about how real God is and that this whole world is just a ray of godliness. And it is immersed in the true oneness of God. Then you will come to love God. Then God will be your God. By the way, there's the Chidah. Chidah was Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai. He was a pupil of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Atar. These are holy, holy, holy Jews. And the Chida said that every non-Jew should say Shema Yisrael every day. Understand, Jews, God is our God, God is one. Because eventually the whole entire world is going to recognize that's what God is one means. God is one means the whole world will recognize that the same God that's creating the Jews is creating them, creating everything. And then you'll come to love God, and you'll come to value life, and you'll come to value every moment of life. And that's why it's so important that the Jewish people should have the land of Israel to show how important the physical world is. Of course, the Jewish people have to get their act together, and they have to start acting like Jewish people, but that's a different story. What about that? Shehi tamid kashur b'hizbonenu zu. That therefore you should be constantly connected to this idea and this awareness of bittul ha'olamos, that all the worlds are totally surrendered l'mechaye, to one who enlivens and mehave, and creates them. But you have to think about it. Why? Because God created the world in a way that this is totally not an obvious thing. Rak mipenei, it says by the angels it is much more obvious. Therefore, the angels are burning up to God. But that's not what God wants. Angels have no choice. That's not what God wants. The angels are just a stopping off point to create this physical world, to create me and you, to create you and me. Rak only mipenei heyos ki gufo agashmi, because our physical bodies lo yachol lakabel, are not able to receive bittul amiti, this true awareness and surrender to God. Yigmor badato. Therefore, you have to make a resolution in your mind. The Kriya Shema inyan limud Torah. I am going to learn the Torah, and I say v'dibartabam. I'm going to force myself. The nafshu elokis ba'asko, that your godly soul. This is speaking now to the Jews. The godly soul should act as though it loves God. And if you really do love God, what are you going to do? You're going to do the Torah. When you learn the Torah, as Nase Yichud Emiti, then you do become make this unity with the Torah, and the Torah and God are totally one, mamish, because the Torah comes from God's wisdom, and it is enclosed in this physical world. And when a person clothes himself in learning Torah, even though he doesn't have love and fear, but he wants to have love and fear in this world, then also the source of his soul above also is awakened in the Torah above, the source of the Torah. On to the highest levels, it becomes a unity. And that's what it means that when a Jew learns the Torah, it says that God sits and learns opposite him. And that's what it means, Hashem Tzilcha, that God is my shadow. Right? King David said, God is like a shadow. What's a shadow? When I move, the shadow moves. The same thing, what we do in this world, God reacts to, because God really cares about every detail. This is a whole new level of faith in God. On one hand, we're saying that God creates us every moment. Okay, that's a little bit hard to swallow, but good, creates us every moment. Good. Now we're saying not only does God create us every moment, and that we're really absolutely nothing, but miraculously God is creating us, so we're very important in his eyes. He says we're really important in God's eyes. We're much more important in God's eyes than you think. God actually reacts to what we do. And sometimes God acts even before we do. Like it says, I am God that took you out of Egypt. Pirush, what does it mean? A person can't say, because of humility, how can I possibly reach this level of the unity of Torah and commandments and prayer? Why? I'm still, you know what I think, you know where my mind is, you know what I'm my emotion, you know what I really love, what I really fear, the exact opposite of what it says over here. How am I going to pray to God? I'll just, I'll do the commandments, just leave me alone. Says the Rebbe, don't do that. Why? Because you're minimizing, how do you say? You're underrating God. Because the fact of the matter is that every Jew is totally complete by God. In some way, every human being, like we said, every human being is made in the image of God. Oh, 1 second. So if you look at the world, let's talk about the Jews. Here, the Rebbe is writing this especially for Jews. Really, the fact is he's writing it for the Hasidim. These are people who learn Torah and they know mitzvahs. And the Rebbe is saying that you're probably thinking you're infinitely far away from God, and that you're really nothing, and that you're really just totally distant no matter what you do. It's no way even approaching paying God back for what you owe him. How much would a person pay for an eye, for an ear, for a vocal cord? Right, if it's missing, you pay whatever you'd be paying the whole rest of your life. We have eyes and we have ears and we have this, and how can we pay God back? So a person can say, "Oh, yeah, look what I've done in the past. I'm finished, and I don't even want to change." Says the Rebbe, that's a big mistake. Why? Take this to your heart. God took the Jews out of Egypt. God, he'll help you. We say every day that God helps. God will separate the good from the bad. And nafesh elokis, the godly soul from the animal soul. Even this is as long as you don't actually do anything bad. If you do bad things or you say bad things, then you have to ask God for forgiveness. Then you have to start changing your mind. Right? But as soon as you do change your mind, then God forgives you. Afilu Rasha Gomer, even if a person is a totally evil person, who mamshich benafshu alokisi draws down in his godly soul, the isko b'Torah, when you do Torah, Raksha alav ne'amar, it says a Rasha Omar Elokim, God says to the evil person, why are you doing my commandments? What does it mean? She'ein to'elas benafshu alokis. If a person is totally evil, totally bad, and he learns the Torah, then true, he's bad, he's doing it for the wrong reason, because it does, so therefore it doesn't benefit his godly soul, because it says, Tashlich, you've thrown my things in behind you. You can't draw down godliness, but God will take you out of Egypt. That's the whole thing of God. God helps people, personally God helps people, not by means of a person. You don't have to believe in any human beings or anything like that. All you have to do is say, God help me. And as soon as you say, God help me, it says God heard the cries of the Jews in Egypt, and he took them all out of Egypt. Impossible task. Millions and millions of people were taken in one day, at one time, from a place that never in the history of Egypt did one slave ever escape from Egypt. Never happened. And one day God took all the Jews. That's an impossible thing. It says the same thing. If God could take all the Jews out of Egypt, then God can certainly take me out of my bad habits and my bad nature and my bad past and my this. That's the nature of God. So what have we learned up to now? We've learned the tremendous importance of doing physical commandments in this world, and it's the essence of godliness. But there should be with love and fear, because love and fear are wings that make the commandments more meaningful. But if you don't have love and fear, so don't worry about it. God will take you out of Egypt. Just do the commandments as they are, and the rest will come from the creator of the universe. That he's got a hobby that he likes to take people out of their troubles and their problems if the people just allow him to. And that is why this world is better than all the world to come. Okay, let us now learn the Devar Malchut. 1 second.